Hello dear YouTube doggos. Today we're doing things a little bit differently. You're going to watch me brush Hariette while I answer some of your most common questions. So let's jump right into it. I have a list of questions here that people often send me, so I thought I'd answer a few of them while you watch me brush Hariette and see how easy it is. Obviously, Hariette has a lot of skin, so sometimes you're going to see me kind of hold it while I brush. This doesn't hurt her, so don't worry about that. So my first question I'm asked the most often is, why do I train animals, more specifically dogs? Because they suffer from all kinds of problems, including aggression and fear, emotional, physical, and I want to make their lives better. So I think we've been with dogs around us for a really long time, but had failed to research what this animal was, what it can do, and why were we living with it across the world. So the short answer to that is to make their life better. Also to help humans understand what dogs are actually saying, because they do communicate with us all the time. My other most common question is why I don't use lures. I could spend over an hour talking about this and I wouldn't be finished. So I'm going to try to keep it short to get to the other questions. Why I don't use lures? Because putting food in front of an animal for it to learn to do something is not necessary. First and foremost, the food actually distracts them from doing what they're supposed to do, and they tend to not respond very well. I prefer to train animals to think and problem solve for themselves, which they're really, really good at. And when you actually allow that to happen without using lures, then you see their full potential. And believe me, their full potential is far beyond what you can imagine it to be. Lures also become a crutch for client and trainers alike, which means if they need to train a novel behavior, they don't know how to do that. Or when problems are going bad, they put food back into the dog's face, forgoing what they have learned in the first place. So this crutch is a really insidious little thing that prevents dogs from learning and actually accomplishing behaviors. Thirdly, it becomes really detrimental using lures when you're working with an exotic animal that can kill you. If I put a piece of steak in front of the lion's face in order to try to get it to sit, well, guess what? A swoop of his paw and I am dead. So we don't use lures when we train exotic animals for that purpose. It's very dangerous. And what I apply to exotic animals, I apply to our dogs. If we can't use a certain tool with any other animal species, then I don't use it with dogs, and that includes luring. People tend to argue with me that it's faster training, and honest to God, when you know how to shape behavior and the dog has learned how to learn and problem solve, my training is a lot faster than a lure trainer. Plus, I don't have to remove the lure and the cue that comes with it. Now, the fourth reason is that the hand signal when you hold food and you put it in front of your dog becomes a cue to everything. So be it a piece of food pinched in your fingers or closed in your palm, every time the dog sees those pinched fingers or that palm, will know that you want it to do something. And that cue becomes sit, it becomes down, it becomes stay, it becomes up. It's a cue for everything. And when you have nothing in your hand and you have an open palm, the dog will not perform the behavior. And some people go back to that closed palm as a cue. So it becomes problematic in multiple ways. So there's absolutely no reason to use it. We've bred dogs, we've trained dogs. Dogs are part of our lives, and they pick up on information far better than any other species on the planet. So why use food and try to coach them into doing behaviors when we don't have to? And I really strongly believe that in the Dog Academy school, we do not use lures. You learn how to train without using food in the dog's face. Our treats always stay on the table, and it also allows you to focus on the dog's behavior instead of trying to focus on the food. We also never have food on us when we're learning to train. The food is somewhere else, on a table, on a counter, far away, so that when we do reinforce the dog and we clicker train, for example, then we have time to go back to the lure and take it and then give it to them. So we have plenty of time to do that. So hopefully that's the short version, and I've answered your question pretty well. Another of my most common question is training a wolf like training a dog? The short answer to that is no. Wolves are not dogs, and dogs are not wolves. Maybe they were thousands and thousands of years ago, but that is no longer true today. Wolves are more like cats when it comes to training. It's very difficult to make them want to do something if they don't, because they have the ability to kill you. So we go by their desire to work. And again, I bring this to the dog world. If my wolf doesn't want to perform a certain behavior for whatever reason it deems not satisfactory, then I don't force the dogs to do it. Yes, sometimes we have to do behaviors, but most of the time, the dog will comply if we just let it be for a few minutes. And you saw before Hariette left, Albert stepped in. I let her leave. Albert wants to be brushed. He has no fur, so we just pretend. And then he leaves and Hariette comes back. Maybe she needed a break. There's a lot of sounds outside, and that can stress her out. She's a guard dog after all. So this is part of training. So I really wish everybody had at least an hour contact time with a wolf. They would really, truly understand how dogs and wolves are not the same. And my friend Ray Coppinger said once during a conference, if anything, dogs behave more like coyotes than they do wolves. And that is absolutely true. So good question, by the way. I am sorry I don't remember your names. I'm very bad at it. I should have written it down. But if it was your question, you can comment in the section, and I'll be happy to thank you the next time around. Another question I get a lot is, what's clicker training and why do we do it? So clicker training is basically a bridge between the behavior and the reward. So it brings those two things together by using a consistent sound. It is vital information for the animal to receive that it has done the right behavior and that rewards are coming. So it is a reinforcement between behavior and the reward. So reinforcement is what we're telling the animal. Reinforcement means, I want you to do this behavior again. The reward is what we're actually giving them once they've accomplished that. So reinforcement comes in positive or negative. So positive meaning we're adding something the dog wants, hence a treat, after the behavior it's performed, for example, brushing, and then I give it a reward. The reward can be anything that satisfies a need, and that changes from second to second, from dog to dog. So it can be treats, water, all the basic needs. And now obviously some are ethical to use and some are not. Like we can't use air to reinforce a dog. But food, water, shade, sun, depending on the circumstances. So thermal regulation. Also just basic needs of safety. And obviously there's reproduction, although in certain animal fields they do use that as a reward. We don't use that with dogs. So as I said, some are ethical, some are unethical. Food is a generalized reward because every creature needs to eat to stay alive. But Hariette loves water. It could also be affection and toys. So knowing your dog kind of, helps figure that out. But that constantly changes. So if Hariette's taking a treat and 3 seconds later she doesn't want to take a treat, then I have to reward her with something else. So a reward is what the dog wants or needs, not you. That's very important. And why do we clicker train? Well, because the clicker is a universal sound. So if I'm clicking a dog or you're clicking a dog, the dog will recognize the sound. Plus, that sound is not affected by your emotional state. So, for example, I'm brushing Hariette's leg. I could click and just give her a treat, and you could do the same thing. So sometimes we train in pairs. I click, you give the treat, or vice versa. So when we want to reinforce the dog, with our voice, for example, if I say good girl, that's kind of a neutral good girl. If I'm overly excited or overly joyous, I'll say good girl. And if I'm, not in a good mood and I say good girl, well, these are three different bridges. There are three different versions of clicker, if you will. And that is affected by your emotion, and dogs will pick up on your emotions. Therefore, the clicker standardizes that sound. Sometimes I click and say good girl at the same time, hence why good girl is now classically conditioned and the dog recognizes what that is. But overall, it's just an amazing tool for everybody to be using because the sound is the same everywhere all the time. It's just a consistent way. Now, the first time I brushed Hariette, she hated it with a passion. So I took my clicker out, and you do a few brushes, you don't react, click, treat. And I did this a few times, and now Hariette sees the brush and she's like, oh my God, I'm going to get brushed. And she gets so excited and joyful because there's a positive association between the brush. Clicker training is not for life. It's a tool. A good trainer will eventually show you how to get away from that. And as you can see now, I'm brushing Hariette, but I'm not clicking at all. I am saying good girl and petting her. So again, she leaves, she's allowed to leave. I don't force her to stay there. FYI, I use a towel because there's so much fur. Oh, noise. There's so much fur that it gets everywhere. So putting a towel helps prevent putting fur. So I brush her ears, I brush everything, and she's happy with that. So good shake. But that's been rewarded so much that she'll just comply and have fun. And you can see her tail wagging. She's like, yay, I'm getting brushed. And that's just, I go back to why we train dogs, and that's just to make her life so much better. And what my last question before we go was, what is my scariest training moment? I was training a buffalo for giving its left and right horn, and I wasn't watching the lower part of the animal. And at some point I asked for the horn too high, and the buffalo actually jumped, like raised his legs to try to come and touch my hand with its horn. And I didn't see that, and I literally got scared because that's a huge animal, and I didn't want that horn to be, impaled in my body any way, shape, or form. So it kind of, was scary. Thank you for watching. I hope this answers some of your questions. If you have more, please place them in the comment and I will get back to them as soon as possible. This is me signing off and saying, bye-bye, fellow doggos.